Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, Twitch chat. Welcome back to Let's Play. I'm your host, Father Evan. It's good to be with y'all today, and I hope you're having a good day. Good to see you, Love, and congratulations on the crown of Furstendom. You've won the crown of designing an expansion of this church, because I couldn't let it just remain simple. Project creep is real. Or scope creep, I think is the phrase. It's real. Let me show you. Hey, K-Max. So, here's the foundation for our church that we laid out. And hello! I've decided we're adding buttresses. So I kind of sketched out a rough one, but I want to do a little bit of work to this. Using stone and smooth stone. And I made some scaffolding as well. So what I was thinking is that the center core here will be smooth stone and then regular stone on the outsides. And then also what I'm thinking is that we're not going to keep them at this uniform height. They'll be relative to where they are as the dirt falls, because I want this image kind of the church kind of rising out of this pile of dirt on this side. I don't know what we're going to do on this. Well, I guess we're going to do the same, although we're probably going to raise some of this up. It's kind of a little low, but... Then I was thinking we could have like a small window in each of these portions, and then in between we can have bigger windows. So we need to figure out the spacing. Hi, Mac. Welcome. Thank you for the follow. Nope. Yeah, that's one too many. I know, right? Wait, that's the wrong stone. How you doing, Sub-Zero? Where it's very helpful to have a Pokemon to help me get back down to Earth. So yeah, kind of a mix of stone and cobblestone. I think I like that. We're on projects. Take a look at the performance tonight. So here's the question. How spaced out should these be, I guess? This is this is 60 blocks long, I think, because we made it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so it's... Well, it's 60 from here, actually. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Especially you, man. Like, I don't want them super close together because this pillar, the base of it is 5 wide. So if that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is basically at 5 to 10. So what if we did just another 5? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because then we can have a window there. That feels pretty good. Hey, Eric. Hey, Hito. So we'll have this sort of portion of the buttress on the inside. That seems sad today. I'm just sleepy, man. I have no energy today. I got a lot of sleep. It's like, that's... Maybe I just got too much sleep. You feel that way too? That's valid. You're up. Something barometric pressure. I'm not a I almost said geologist, and it's like, that is so not the right word. So yeah, not tired, but or not sad, but thank you for the concern. But definitely tired. Is it bad to interpret your own dreams? I don't think so, but depends on how much stock you put into the interpretation of dreams in general. I am of the opinion that dreams can be a good tool for self-reflection. I am not convinced that every dream has some grand metaphysical meaning, but that's just my opinion. I do believe in demons. I mean, it's part of scripture. I don't believe anyone who claims to have power over it is fooling themselves. So this is currently at 2, so 1, 2, 3 more up. Okay. That's why we need Evil Eye? Probably not. I think trusting in God's providence and protection is good enough. Sometimes you dream of cheese. Cheese. I dream of cheese, but mostly when I'm building a magic deck. Okay, so this, from here, it's one... Oh, actually, we don't need this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Should you go to Mass? Well, I can't answer that necessarily for you. I think it's a good thing to go to Mass. You don't need to, per se. It's not a holy day of obligation, but I think it's always a good thing to do. Church is run by Redemptorists who have perpetual help devotions before Mass. Hey, that's awesome. I love the Redemptorists. My community, the Paul's Fathers, all of our founders were actually Redemptorist priests originally. Minecraft. Hi, Inca. Okay, so one more up. Have I seen your house yet? Yes. I'm pretty sure I did last time. Why did I choose my order? I was very drawn to the Paulists because of our use of technology and media as a means of evangelization. I'm thinking I want to change how this works. I think I just want there to be one. If you were St. Paul, would you write to SSPX? I mean, I am not Paul. I do not pretend to be, but I'd probably just write something about the importance of unity and trusting in the communal nature and reality of the church and working alongside Peter. Anyway, I think I want these base pieces to just be one block and a stair. I don't mind that they're uneven. I think, again, that's part of the aesthetic. The situation between China and SSPX is a false equivocation, though. Because the reality is that at the end of the day, SSPX doesn't necessarily need... No religious community needs its own bishops. That's not what a bishop is. The church has bishops. Well, I choose to trust in the wisdom of the Holy Father and do my best to remain in communion with him, and so we'll see where everything goes. Do you like my measuring stick, chat? Ow. What have I been playing off stream? Civilization. I really like Civilization. I also played Island of Illusion recently, which was it was on sale. Thoroughly enjoyed that. It's asked a really interesting question. Which Civ 6? Chicken Jockey, a Brayherd. But Island of Illusion asks a really interesting question. What would happen if you had a Metroidvania without combat? No, it's good that you consider the Novus Ordo a valid mass, because it is. But here is the thing that I think Traditionis Custodes is trying to get at, Hito, that is at the core of it, is that reverence is good, and trust me, I celebrate the Novus Ordo exclusively, and I celebrate it reverently. And trust me when I say that historically the TLM was not without its abuses. I think we've gotten into this false equivocation that one is more reverent than the other, and I don't think that's healthy. And we need to look at what is normative within the church, precisely because the liturgy is designed to be a teaching moment. It's an evangelizing moment. So can it be done poorly? Yeah. But so can the TLM. And trust me, I have spoken to plenty of guys who were ordained before the Second Vatican Council, and the things they saw from priests when they were in seminary of trying to do the mass in like 8 minutes. It's like, well, Lost Kingdoms. No, I have not. Just because SSPX drove people away from Sede Vacantism doesn't mean that they're infallible. One of the things that I've seen people online talking about is like, oh, if they ordain new bishops and then the Vatican excommunicates them, then, but they can't because they lifted the excommunication. It's like, that's not how this works. Like, if you get caught stealing from the cookie jar and then you're sent to timeout and your mom lets you out early, you can't go and you go back to the cookie jar and get caught stealing again, you're gonna be in trouble again. So sorry, I and if someone is Sede Vacantes, they are de facto in schism, because they are not in union with the Pope. RPG for GameCube from FromSoft. Oh, wow. Huh. No, never heard of it. Hey, Beer Fox. I'll have to look into this game. Yeah, big problem with that thinking, though, Hito, is that the private revelation and private opinion of saints then gets judged against the tradition. Right? That's where I need to get to. One above this? Yes. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. This is looking pretty cool. Yeah, thank you, KMax. I'll have to look into that game. I am curious. Hey, Nathan. I have a hard time thinking Some of our faith legend because St. Veronica couldn't find her in the Bible. Okay, history. Tradition developed later. What if she never existed at all? Yeah, no, and that's here. So two things. One, Veronica's existence or lack thereof does not change the fact of the core reality of faith, that God, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, became incarnate, suffered, died, and rose from the dead, and by means of baptism, we enter into his life. Veronica does not change that one way or another. That said, her story can bring us closer. And even if it's not historically true, we can still look at it and reflect on what it means vis-a-vis the sort of the image of Christ not painted by human hands, which is a very old tradition, and what that means. And we can choose whether or not to believe in her and her historicity. Like, she is, like, you know, there are sort of the stories that have grown and developed post scripture. That doesn't mean they're necessarily untrue. It just means that they're not, because they're not in the canon of scripture, they're not essential to our faith. Does that help? Does that make sense? Just hard not to be a skeptic when I look this stuff. What if there's a core belief that we have right now that might have been a legend or a myth? Well, I think there's a big difference. You know, the story of Veronica is a story that develops in and through time and history. And again, could be true. I'm not saying it isn't. But what we believe about scripture particularly is that it is divinely inspired. We have that belief and that faith, and that's an essential part. We have the faith that God has worked in and through human history to inspire the writing, the creation, the passing down of scripture for our salvation. You know, Veronica, her story, even if it is historically true, it's not essential to the faith, and it itself is not guided by the Holy Spirit. How we say that the Bible is divinely inspired and not the Quran, how can we prove it? Well, there is a line from one of the epistles of Paul: do not believe another gospel, even if preached to you by an angel. It's very hard experiencing spiritual dryness. That is entirely valid. Yeah, I would not say that you are betraying God, but I get where that feeling is coming from. But I think the invitation could be, how to phrase this? How to move into a relationship and a faith in God that moves beyond just asking for a favor. And a great way to start is thankfulness. Thanksgiving. It is a powerful form of prayer. I mean, literally our greatest prayer, the Eucharist, it means Thanksgiving. But taking time to be thankful to God, saying, hey, these are the good things that happened today. This is where I saw your love. This is where I saw your hand. Is a space to move into that new kind of relationship, a deeper one. It's hard with these doubts. Yeah, doubts are hard, but here's the good thing. If you're asking questions and you're doubting, that means you're using your mind and your heart, and God wants that more than, doing nothing at all. Scared of losing that closeness, and I think that's valid. That is an entirely valid feeling. But the same God who has walked with you already and brought you out of the darkness you have experienced will continue to be with you. But it's often my own spiritual director will ask me, where do you see God in this? And it's a good challenge to me because it makes me ask, quite literally, it's like, okay, where do I see God in this? And I often will rely on metaphors, and maybe you're a metaphor kind of person, and maybe you're not. Either way is valid. But I tend to come up with metaphors and be like, it's like, God is coach, like, on the sidelines, telling me it's like, no, you gotta run harder, or, God is a counselor, someone I can trust and turn to, and, and sort of share my heart with. Because God will be with us in our lives in different ways. And if you're feeling spiritually dry, it's entirely valid. Sometimes we do not fully understand the mystery of it, but sometimes God allows us to have those periods of dryness. I mean, Mother Teresa is a great example, and she never gave up her faith. Sometimes people are like, oh, she gave up her faith at the end of her life. No, she didn't. She just had dryness. And that happens. I encourage you to find someone, either a spiritual director or just a spiritual mentor that you can talk with, because we don't have to do this journey alone, and it's good that we can turn to people with more experience and different experiences and say, hey, help me figure this one out. Really hard to understand people without faith. I mean, yeah. But I'll also say it's hard to understand people, period, sometimes. Would it be easier to be ignorant? I don't know if it would be easier. It would seem easier, but I don't think it would be easier, and nor do I think it would be as rewarding. God invites us into relationship very intentionally. So that we can have, as Christ said, I have come so you may live life and live it to the fullest. Okay, so I kind of had a thought. I kind of want to do some, kind of like what they do with porphyry in certain places. So like using the darker stone to sort of make an intertwining sort of helix with a larger stone kind of in the middle of everything. You know, demons create various something that feels absolutely love. Hey there, Hope. I don't think they can create something that they certainly cannot create absolute love, but they might be able to trick someone, particularly someone who is maybe desperate or vulnerable. But I think that's a hard one even for them. Because in many ways they cannot show what they do not have. I think that's a fair way to put it, K-Max. I think there are ways that people can be unfortunately manipulated that you know, it's just what it is, and it's the unfortunate taking advantage and abuse of people who are vulnerable. New York pizza. Yeah, it's pretty good. We'll get back to the rota. Hey, Jen. Yeah, good question. No, and I mean, there is the unfortunate reality of the abuse crisis that happened in the church, and we're seeing a lot of things happening right now, and we don't know necessarily what's true, what's not. But I think for myself, an essential part of it is trusting that, as Christ said, I will be with the church until the end of the ages. Okay, so this is 10, so we know this is 60 long. Want to chop it up into 10 long segments so we can find the center, is what I'm doing. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Well, that email also, in particular also existed 10 years after John Paul II even died. So there's... Like I said, there's kind of a lot happening, and I am not an expert in any of it. So that's why I think it's important to trust in God's presence in his church. You know, the enemy will do many things to try and dissuade the faithful. Supposedly he said he could destroy the Catholic Church, the Cardinal replies, clergyman, and sin to receive communion at SSPX Mass. I legitimately do not know the answer to that question, because I do not know the intricacies of what their canonical status is. I know that during the year of mercy, Francis granted universal faculties to them to hear confessions and let them retain that right after the year. What? I don't even understand the question, Hope. I know it's a joke, but I feel like I'm missing something. Didn't consume... No? Chicken's still off limits on Good Friday? Plus, if your chicken is consuming red meat, I'm concerned. No, chicken is off the table on Good Friday. And any day of abstention. We do still have a floating rotida. Chickens are opportunistic eaters. I mean, they'll eat bugs. A lot, but they'll really just about eat anything if they're hungry. Because they're chickens. Bugs are made of exoskeleton. Bugs have more than just exoskeleton. They are rich in protein. But don't Catholics fast as much as Orthodox? Different traditions. fasting is a powerful and beautiful spiritual action, but over the course of centuries and different locations, it's taken on different rules and different norms. Anyway, Rotata. In today's gospel, Jesus has the line, "No prophet is accepted in his hometown." And I don't read that line as angry, but definitely kind of saddened and upset. Yeah, there was more fasting before Vatican II. It was made a bit more lenient, but even then, even that was less than the sort of full Orthodox rules, as it were. What about pork, the other right meat? Sorry to break to you, Hope. The rule around fast or abstention from meat is that it's a land animal. This is why things like beaver and capybara and alligator getting counted as fish is somewhat comedic, because they are basically land animals. Well, I know beavers and alligators are. Beaver is actually an interesting one because it's actually mostly a historical concession. Scientific community. Well, I mean, the concept of science and taxonomical categorization wasn't a thing, really. But it was actually a thing, because for French trappers in Canada, it was hard to necessarily procure fish that far inland. But these beavers lived aquatically in the rivers, and that seemed fine. So, and they were catching them anyway. Do I draw good crosses, or am I a quick swipe? I like to hope I'm a good cross drawer. I don't know, I tried to give people a good amount of visible ash as a reminder for them throughout their day. Stamps. What, like spray paint stamps? Is that what you want? Yeah, if we did Ash Wednesday every week, imagine how many people would show up to church on a regular basis. It's the most popular day of the church year. We can go on Shark Tank. Okay, we got a proposition for you. Ashes. Don't think it'll work. It's actually interesting because the whole cross on the forehead thing is a more American and Canadian thing. Historically in Europe, they just put they sprinkle ash on top of your head. You don't even see it as the day goes on. I mean, there is an openness, but also I think it's just, culturally, I think there's something about it, like, you know, if you're Catholic, it's like, this is the day you have to go to church. You got to get your ashes. in order to show that you are Catholic. How's that for a pitch? I recommend keep working on it. What's my opinion on Christmas and Easter Catholics? Well, I wish they'd come more often because they're missing out on the life of the church that, you know, God is here for. But I'm happy to see them, and I hope that it plants seeds in them to seek God with a sincere heart. Somehow I'm not surprised that Chrysostom would have something then. Well, some priests do actually, you know, so... Ooh, that is a great question, Jen. And I think that's one, Pope Francis talked a little bit about this, and like, Brother Guy, who's the head of the Vatican Observatory for many years, I think has written on this subject. And it's something that sort of the Franciscan school of thought and the Dominican school of thought just differ on, because in the Dominican school of thought, they argue, based on Thomas's writings, that the incarnation only happened because of the fall, whereas Francis, or the Franciscan school, not Francis himself, but the Seraphic doctor, I can't remember his name, he argued that no, the incarnation is still the completion and fullness of creation, so even in a world without a fall, it would occur. Take care, Step Zero. Blessed Duns Scotus? I think so, but I think also... he was a cardinal... He was a Franciscan cardinal. He was a major theologian. Bonaventure, I think also argued that. It's Takashi Nagai's birthday. Well, happy birthday in heaven. God willing, hopefully. Have I read Dune? No, I have not gotten around to reading Dune. That book be thick. Hey, Britt. Have I seen the film? Which one? I've seen part 1 of the new one, and I've also seen the mini series from the 80s. We need Takashi Nakai canonized. That would be great. We need all our servants of God canonized. That would be a what a blessing. Nope, never read Dresden Files, but I'm aware of it. I'd be happy to see Isaac Hecker be moved up to Blessed. What would name it? Would I pick if I was Pope? Sixtus, because the last Sixtus was Sixtus V. So that would make me Sixtus VI. That or suburban, since there have been popes urban. Clearly, there can be a pope suburban. Okay, it's the miniseries sci-fi one that I saw then. Oh, I'm sure I enjoy. I've heard good things. This is life. Anyway, check out this floor pattern. What do y'all think? I'm thinking anywhere that there's major gaps right now, filling that in with granite to be the red porphyry, and then this, just filling it in with polished diorite. We don't... God does not condemn us for who we are. Would I want to be Pope? No. That sounds like way too much work. I don't even want to be Bishop. That sounds like way too much work itself. Okay, we're going to go get some more polished diorite. I've become more important. Don't forget about you. Don't worry. Is it only popes who don't want to? Well, yes, but I'm also not a cardinal. I'm not a bishop. So, like, the odds... very slim, especially because we just had a papal election, so God willing, we don't have another for a while. You don't want to be a priest who does annulments? Ah, a canon lawyer. Quite literally, that is a major thing they do. I've known many good priests who have served on the tribunals, which sounds way more daunting than it is. A cardinal yet? Oh no. What if I became a cardinal? I think I'd cry. You'd be very confused if you ended up elected Pope. I would be too, because you're canonically not eligible. Why not take the name Peter II? There's kind of a general tradition of not taking the name Peter as Pope, kind of out of respect of the papacy and the Petrine office, that's like, let that name stand for what it is in the universal and historical tradition. Because while you may have the shoes of the fisherman, you are not the fisherman. We're level up to level 40. Bitch. I don't think I get to pick that. But yeah, Balthazar did not want to be a cardinal and dies on the way to the ceremony. I think it was God kind of saving Balthazar, being like, I got you, bro. Yeah, but the Palmarian Catholic Church is also nuts. How many wise men visited Jesus? Scripture does not tell us. Tradition is that we have 3. We have the names Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar for them. But the Gospel of Matthew, where they appear, just says wise men. We typically say 3 because there were 3 gifts. Is there a church to the relics of crowns of kings who visited Jesus? Not that I'm aware of. I've never heard that tradition, but I do know in the Acts, or not the Acts, the Confessions of St. Patrick, there is a legend. The Palmarian Church is just fully schismatic and heretical. So, yeah, I have not heard of that tradition, Hito. It might... I'd be interested to look into it and see what it has to say about it. Aiken has a good podcast on the Magi. Nice. Yeah, like I said, they're just straight up heretical. Spain. But... Shrine of Three Kings is in... Oh, those crowns. Oh, duh. Oh, sorry. My brain did not put that together. I didn't think of the wise men's crowns, because tradition is that they were kings. Yes, there is a shrine. More than just their crowns, their bodies are held in the Cologne Cathedral. How many schismatic churches are there? A lot, actually. But they're all... Most of them are pretty small. There's a schismatic church in Africa where it was actually led by an archbishop there. He wound up getting married and creating his own schismatic church. That should be enough for now. Yeah, I think that's part of the Palmarian thing, but it's also just, I don't know, there's a lot going on there, and I'm just gonna say they are what they are, and that is objectively schismatic and heretical. Now you want a Kolsch? Crack open a Kolsch one. I don't think the church would necessarily take an immediate stance, but would want to study and discern to make an appropriate statement. Was Albertus Magnus in Cologne as well? I have not heard of that infinite, and I think I'm happy to have not heard of it. Well, I think someone also claiming to be possessed by the spirit of a deceased pope is also a red flag. In fact, that just kind of sounds like a whole bunch of red flags. Is it true that there's a machine out of the Vatican that records all Protestant names? No. How do I know that? The Vatican isn't that organized, that's how. One of my favorite. So obviously not true kind of conspiracy things that happened was that the Holy Year, there's this AI video going around about the Pope is going to open this portal that only gets opened every so often. And it's like, it's called a door. It leads to the church where there are other doors. I had this video. It was like, there will be 1,000 priests in Vatican Square performing an incantation. It's like, you know nothing. I did see the news about the restaurant. I also saw that the Vatican also came out and said, no, we were thinking about it, but we haven't made any decisive plans. And there is actually already a small, not a bar, but like a small cafe up there already, where you can get beer, but it's like beer, coffee, and wine and tea. It's been up there for a long time. So when I saw the headline, I was like, doesn't that already exist? Yes, and Store and Portal can be translated. But it was just like, it was this hilarious video of just like, priests will be chanting in St. Peter's Square. It's like, okay, so they're going to celebrate Mass. Put an IMAX theater up there. I think the weight might be a question. I'm not an architect, but I'm guessing that the structure of St. Peter's is already holding up a lot of weight. It's like, you know, some of the conspiracy theories where people are like, oh, there's so much stuff in the Vatican archive. It's like, well, yeah, it's been around for a really long time. I think the first archive was started in like the 800s. But the reason, and people are like, oh, it's so secret. It's like, well, that's not what the term means. It's a bad translation from Latin. Also, the Vatican doesn't entirely know what's down there because the concept of an archival library or like an archive system didn't exist until well after the library was started. How about a casino? I don't see that happening, but you know, you could take it up with Pope Leo. Make a life-size Pokemon arena. That'd be fun. Play with straight vibes. I have been, I mean, he's the Pope, I will follow and submit to his will, but I have been very impressed from him on a personal level and from the things I have heard. Such as right now, Bishop Kikanus from Arizona is staying with us because he's in town for Cardinal Dolan's installation. Archbishop Hicks' installation. Cardinal Dolan is retiring officially on Friday. But he was saying, like, when Leo was Robert Prevost and was bishop in Chiclayo, he just texted him saying, hey, I could really use some more Spanish-speaking priests here. Do you think you could help me find someone and help discern, you know, some options and guys who might be willing? Prevost, now Leo, just texted back personally, like, which, if you know how bishops work, the concept of a bishop, especially an overseas bishop, just casually texting you, not an easy thing. They're very busy guys. Leo has big Teddy Roosevelt energy. I can see that. I don't think he's going to go on as many hunting trips as Teddy did, but you know. We haven't even built the archways, and I think these are these. I don't know if this part of a buttress has a particular name. I want to call it a stanchion, but If cardinal differs from political stance, like if a, I mean, politics is in some ways a personal choice. There are certain elements of Catholic teaching that we are called to always uphold regardless of party, but if your wife, she just got a job offer. Hey, that's awesome. Congrats to her, but prayers for good discernment about that offer. We are more orphans in the modern American political system. Amen. But from a, I mean, the truth is, you can have a pastor that you disagree with politically. That's okay. Like, in matters of faith, we have a duty to submit, but I should have an ice cream, but I will also have an ice cream. Thank you, Hito. You take care. Hope you have a nice prayerful mass. Oh yeah, no, there are definitely people who let politics steer their faith, but what about a candy spin? Ooh, it doesn't have ice cream, but it is sugar, I guess. Actually, you know what's really sad? Is it's a Wednesday. And every Wednesday, dessert for dinner is ice cream. Oh, sure, there are parties you can't join, but like broad strokes speaking. It's a good thing you're tired of ice cream. It's a good thing. It's just, it's funny that A, that happened, and B, it happened on a Wednesday. Anyway, we're digging out the crypt now. Because you'll be able to enter the crypt here, and we'll kind of have special crypts for like the bishops, and then a larger crypt down here. Birds were involved. I like this design. Let's go find some oak trees. Oh look, I found some oak trees. It is more accessible for me to catch a Broadway play from time to time. In fact, I literally live about a 10, 15-minute walk from most of the theaters. No oak about it. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, this is how we're going to make our pews. There's a bench. I might move this one back. That's a little too close to the... That's a good distance for the first row. We'll give 2 spaces between each, I guess. Or maybe 3, because then it would be 3. There's going to be so much room to kneel here. People with long legs, rejoice. Rejoice at the kneelers. Because, like, when I go to the cathedral in Salt Lake City, which is, I'm from Utah originally, so been there many times, pews are so tight together that, like, when I'm kneeling, my feet bump into there's like a support beam underneath the pew. And so I actually have to, like, sit or, like, kneel angled. These are a little taller than I'd like, because, like, when you're right up against it, but eh. At a distance, they look appropriately pewish. You have to be careful because you can knock down the kneeler behind you. I know. But no, it's not even that it's the kneeler. There is a, like, you think 2 blocks? We could do. But at the Cathedral of the Madeleine, it's not even that it's the kneeler of the pew behind me. There's a support beam underneath. Yeah, I guess 2. Economically, we have to make pews like economy flight seats. No! No, no, please no. Does that make the presider chair first class? I am thinking here we'll have doors on the sides, so we'll leave space open. Front row's where it's at. But what if your front row doesn't have a kneeler? Actually, I didn't want that. Remove pews entirely. Yeah, let's start selling chairs from the sacristy. Because that used to be a thing. Like, you go to churches in Rome, and a lot of them don't have pews because pews just weren't a thing. So the rich people would bring their own chair with them, and the middle class would pay the sacristan to give them a chair, and they were like cheap folding chairs. Okay. Let's go find some oak trees. You need to start practicing kneeling on the floor? Yeah, you do. The county is more likely to... That makes sense. You don't think deacons are allowed to wear knee pads? Why? There's nothing against it. We actually have a pair of knee pads for our seminarians to wear during ordination. So that whoever is the book bearer for the bishop, who has to kneel for some pretty lengthy periods, can do so somewhat comfortably. Can't see the knee. Well, I mean, if you're wearing an alb, they certainly can't. If you're wearing an alb or a cassock or a habit or whatever, yeah, no. Who's gonna have this? Ooh, not a lot of trees there. Not gonna be you. Could go to Agate Village. That looks promising. Go to Agne and then go north. No, that's dark oak. I want regular oak. Okay, this looks like some regular oak. Meantime, hey, you take care, Beer Fox. Nope. Wrong tool. Trying to break down a tree with a... Oh, look. A felled log. I'm going to leave that, even though it's good oak. Okay, how much do we get? 55 logs? That should be good enough for now. Oh, the skeleton's trying to bully me. I suppose some of the good thing about this setup is I don't need to worry about lightning rod for now. Although I do think I want to put a wood roof on, so that's gonna... Okay, so if we want to leave this open, I guess we could repeat the pattern, or we could keep it even, like that. Look how tiny it is. There we go, and that'll be the back row, because then we'll have some space to serve kind of as a narthex. Pete and repeat. We're working on a pattern. Pete left. Who was left? Pete! I messed it up, you did. It makes me think of the Oberamagau Unteramagau tongue twister, though. Hoping your Commander Mustard card is here? You mean Colonel Mustard? Why'd you order a single card from Clue? I feel like... Oh, the magic card. I think it is Colonel Mustard, because I think they kept the names. Oh, look. Trainer. That's a thing that got added recently. Oh, it is Commander Mustard. Okay, I was wrong. That's fun getting to play with your coworkers. You made me look bad using counter. Counter Mirko, you were fierce in a Nuzlocke? Valid. You had thought you started to test. Okay, Max, I recommend you take your test. He's gonna touch the butt wrist. Hey, Belle. By the way, I don't know if you saw it, but next time you're in Webby's chat, you should do !the French. Next time you're in Webby's chat, Webby Pumpkins, you know him, Webby, friend of Peter the Tony, Webby Pumpkins, that Webby. Do ! The French in his chat. Goff is great. Oh, this Ninetales is way too under-leveled to win here. I'm surprised I didn't just lose there. Good job, Ninetales. You got experience. Webby's I hit you with the Orson twice. Good. Yes, I spent 10,000 channel points on that. I really need to find some granite. I was looking around in my mines earlier, and I could not find any granite. How's this doing on automating the sugar cane? It's doing good. Took it for granted. I debated even pressing that button, but I felt I had to. Let's go looking in these mines again. But let's look in a different spot from where I looked last time. Because last time I went down to where there's that big underground river. Looked around there for a while and found nothing. Oh, I should have made some torches. Sorry, I am out of torches. I need torches. Priest dying, needs torches badly. First! Hey, Pateroxy. No, but, good to see ya. Oh, man, Dark Legacy. What a game. You mean it's 250? Oh. Ay, bendita. Did they re-release it? I have no idea. It probably has microtransactions. So there's a cavern kind of directly below us. I think it might be a good place to look. After we look up here. Man, I beat Dark Legacy on the GameCube as a kid, solo. That took a while. Yeah, with as many HD re-releases of games that exist these days, it's hard to keep track. Like, sometimes I find out about... Like, I just found out very recently that there's a Neo HD re-release. N-I-O-H. And then I found out that there's a Neo 3, which implies the existence of a Neo 2. And I was like, I didn't even know about that one. Wait a minute, there's a torch here. I've been here. No, that just loops there. Yeah, I just saw it on Steam today. I was like, I didn't even know there was a 2. The game releases will continue until morale improves. Is that dirt or is that... That's dirt. Oh, look, it's the fun place. Okay, I can also make granite with andesite and nether quartz, but then I have to go get nether quartz, which isn't impossible, but it's just, it is its own time-consuming thing. Maybe someone else has some in one of their mines that they'll let me go get. Because, like, I feel like a cavern of this depth should have some. But... alas and alack. Well, at least we're getting a bunch of coal out of this, which is good. Ow! I wasn't expecting this pit to be so deep. That's Enderman noises. That's okay, Enderman. It was always your cave. I promise I was just visiting. Spend a day, we'll fly you out for Texas and fly me back. Economy. Well, I almost always fly economy. In fact, 3 times in my life have I flown not well, I guess economy plus. I sometimes do splurge for, but that's, you know, 6 extra inches of leg room is not a huge difference, but it is nice, especially on long flights. I have flown first class. Only literally 3 times. And one of those times I upgraded myself to it using miles because it was like such a ridiculously low price. It's like, why not? But no, usually I am in an economy, so that wouldn't be different. But I feel like that's still not very economical just to fly me out for a singular mass. I'm sure we can find greater reasons. Tell us the myth of first class. The food was actually pretty good. They had a selection of entrees that you would choose, and it had real cutlery, like real metal cutlery. And that was about it. Kafka. Yeah, no, I mean, if I'm able to. It depends on when. Well, I know the thought is currently in Texas, but it depends on when and pricing and availability and things. Is it true they have champagne? I mean, you can buy champagne in economy. I don't know, one of those times it was, the tickets were bought for me, so certainly wasn't going to complain, but it was like, oh. I've never done like an international flight where they're like the little cabins. Those look bougie. A couple of parents are always... Oh! That's a couple of creepers. I got distracted by chat. No creepers, we need this side of the hill raised. For an upgrade and free tickets. That's valid. I mean, if you're able to delay, like, take them up on the offer. I've done it. So, but that is where we're going to have to call it for the day. I feel like we made pretty good progress. We got these, I don't know, pylon stanchions. The outer part of the buttress built on one side. They're looking cool. I like them. I feel like this one's accidentally one shorter. Ow. Ow, no. Stop it. I was busy inspecting my handiwork. No, I guess it's the same height, just was the angle. But I like the pews. I like this floor design. I think this is really neat. It'll look nice when it's finished. So that is where we will call things for the day. I'll try to find some granite by next week. So thanks so much for tuning in to Let Us Play. I've been your host, Father Evan. It's been good to be with y'all today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Join us again tomorrow for some Super Mario World. Monday, more Pokemon TCG. Tuesday, we will be starting Kena, Bridge of Spirits. Then more Midweek Minecraft. And, not this Friday, but a week from Friday, bonus stream for celebrating 600 followers. Gonna be doing some Donkey Kong 64 randomizer / crowd control. Should be fun. I will eat candy for every time I get when I die. Anyway. Hope you remember. I hope you write it down. Anyway, let's see who's live that we can write into. Nessalag. It could be. It could be. We'll see. Anyway, we're going to go raid Brosif. Raid call is Father Raid. He's a fun guy. He's playing a ROM hack of Super Mario Sunshine called Super Mario Eclipse. I want to check it out. It's looked interesting so far. But go give him some love. He's a fun guy. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. God bless.